I wanted to share just in starting because I think this will be really helpful about a little bit about my journey and how I've come to perceive ever more subtle and powerful energies because I was not a person who just was kind of, I don't think I was naturally this way. I mean, we all are naturally this way. I was not naturally in an experience of that perception for most of my life. I was really more of a muggle. And I was a happy muggle and going through just doing normal things, having children, having jobs, pursuing professional things, all the stuff. And it was, of course, crisis that opened up changes in my life and searching for healing in things where I was really suffering from autoimmune disease, etc. And then that led me to work with people who were really good with energy. So I had this truly extraordinary palette of people that were guiding me energetically into things that I hadn't yet mastered myself, just by being who they were and by teaching and by offering energy transmissions and treatments and then massive activations of different kinds, experiences. And so then that became something that I was very interested in, but still felt like I didn't really get. Like I wasn't one of them, I was the one always learning from them. And I was the one trying to figure out how is it you experience that and what do you know and how do I do that? So that was me, I wasn't, and I didn't have it also from I didn't have a near death experience. I mean, I had challenges, of course. I had pretty major life challenges. That's not unusual for any of us. What happened was I made this my highest priority. And for me at the time, my word for it at that point, because it was kind of early on, like we're talking 2011, that era, right before the big 2012 boom where lots of folks went, oh, hello. And I made it my highest priority, meaning I literally wrote it down like, well, is my health more important than this? No. Is my marriage more important than this? No. What's the most important thing to me? My word was awakening. And so that what became this devotion and this singular focus. And there is a lot of power in a devotion and a priority like that. Okay. And so I just kept going that direction all of the time. That was one piece. The piece was, this is my priority above all things. And in that, I also wanted to gain my energetic mastery. I wanted to become more psychic, have a better third eye, embody my highest self, transcend my ego and my mind. All of that stuff was just like this. So it was priority number one. Another thing that really contributed to the path for me personally was sound, both using the bowl sound, but also sounding, toning myself. And that opened up many pathways of channeling, perceiving things that I hadn't yet perceived, all that sort of thing. Another piece was recognizing the essential necessity of not navigating from my mind, that my mind was not supreme. My mind and my understanding and my thinking and my intellect, and I have a really good intellect, like I scored in the 92nd percentile on the National Law School admissions test, right? So I have a really good intellect. That had become a bit of a stumbling block because the mind runs interference. And I know we've talked about that, but it's so key to working with energy, to embodying our light body, our highest self. The mind must yield, and it must yield completely. You must be out of your mind in this way, and that's a very good thing. Another thing that I did was I began affirming things that were not yet true in my experience. Some of you have heard me tell this story where I was saying to a friend, I was like, well, but I'm not psychic like you. And she was like, what are you talking about? Yes, you are. And I decided to say, okay, let's just go for a while and say I'm psychic and see what happens. Bing, So I'm going to take you back now, since everyone in here got that guidance workshop. And remember, there's the acronym ALTA, that are these principles of working with guidance. First of all, we affirm that we have it. So when we are partnering with energy, we are in relationship with energy, we affirm, I perceive energy, I'm good at it, and I work with it adeptly, or however you want to say it. And at first you may be like, well, but I don't know if that's really true. It is true. You perceive things. You walk into a room and if somebody's just had a fight, and it's not just their body language. Things. And many of us are in this process of discounting what we know, or thinking it will look like what we think is somebody else's experience of perceiving subtle energies. How many of you have ever thought, oh, well, if I'm doing that, it'll look like so and so, or I'll have an experience like them? Anybody? Okay, that was me. I expected it to be like somebody else. No, it's going to be your own thing. And you're already doing it way more. I'm going to say this for every single person, maybe almost every single person here. You're doing it way more than you even allow. And maybe you allow that you're good at it, but you're still doing it more than that. Take a nice deep breath. Our activation has begun. We're going for it. We're going high, deep, and wide and fully into ourselves today. It's so beautiful. So I affirmed things that were not yet in my experience, and then I chose them without knowing how that was going to happen. Like, I don't know how I'm going to perceive these things more, but I am. Now I'm going to tell you a story of one of the things that happened with a shaman in Bali with my dearest friend Ken. And we're sitting there, and it was just the three of us. And I was like being put to the test, okay? And I did not feel up to the test yet. And the test, I didn't. I was like, I can't actually do whatever it is he's about to ask of me. Okay, so, but I really wanted to do it. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm choosing to do this, whatever the task is. And I'll get into that. So one of them was this particular shaman, and he takes us on journeys. We go on the inner planes and we go all these places. And my task was to tell him where we had just gone and what we saw. I was like, oh, what if I don't know? I was like, what if I don't know? Or what if I'm wrong? And I was like, screw it. In that moment, because I had such a devotion to mastering the thing, and I felt I was in the company of masters, so I knew it had to be possible. This thing dropped in, and it was like, oh, I have to look into my heart to see where we just went. And I realized for me, I'd been looking out there, that somehow my extrasensory perception was going to be outward. And maybe for you it is. For me, it's not. If I turn and basically turn my lens and look straight into my heart, I saw all the places we went. And I was so surprised because I was like, I had no idea they were in there. I was like, who knew, Oh my gosh, it was so exciting. Okay, and so then came this, and so I did pretty well on that, actually. I passed that test. And I was like, whew, whew, okay, good. This was like intense apprenticeship. And then he had this bottle of magical oil. And he holds up this little bottle of oil and he goes, what's in here? Well, through translation, of course, because Ken's fluent in Balinese. What's in here? I was like, and I looked right into my heart. And I was like, Ken and I are in there. And he goes, yes, because he had put us both in there energetically. And he had us marinating in this oil, in this sacred oil. And I was like, who knew? Okay, so what I showed myself in that moment, now this is after many years on the path, and with this devotion, and with affirming things that weren't yet true in my experience, with adding in my practice, with always letting go of my mind. And I tell you what, that is something that we learn, that we must unlearn, really, here. And I had been doing that and doing that and doing that. And then I was ready. And that moment arrived in that particular context to show myself that I could perceive more than I even thought then. Okay,